Welcome back to Parenting Shrink Wrap. Melissa and Sam here as usual, and two special guests that we will introduce in a few minutes. But first, I want to talk about I have a lot of patients that have learning differences, ADHD, and often it's really hard for parents to navigate the school system related to those challenges, whether the kid just has trouble with dyslexia and trouble with reading and writing, they have dysgraphia and they have struggle with math. And it's really hard sometimes to find the right setup in an educational setting that can meet that kid's learning needs. And it doesn't matter whether it's a public or private school. I've seen this challenge across the board. And
Uh,
that's part of what we're going to be talking about today.
I was talking with a parent at the start of this week, actually, whose child is neurodivergent, a pretty solid case of ADHD coupled with anxiety, which we know often goes hand in hand with that. And this kid's about to graduate from high school. And the mom was saying, like, she's so excited. The mother is so excited about the kid's next stop because the college that the kids picked is much more in keeping with the culture. Like, it's going to be a better fit for her child than high school was because the kid had some say in what the environment would look like, and the family helped them select. And I said, "Are you familiar with the book, The Dandelion and the Orchid and the Dandelion?" And the mom said, "No." And I said, "Well, here's the general theory. All children," and the author, I've got the book back there. I can't read the author's name. I'm embarrassed. But the theory is that all children are flowers. Some are dandelions who can grow in cracks in the sidewalk. But they're but those dandelions, like, they're beautiful, but they're not as unusual as an orchid. An orchid blooms in a very complex and amazing and gorgeous ways, but it needs a specific environment for that bloom to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to this mom, "You've got an orchid." and she's been trying to bloom in a crack in the sidewalk. And you see that you're about to put her in the right greenhouse. Or she's selected, and the mother started to get teary because yes, so I completely agree with you. And I know that the conversation today that we're going to have builds on that. Do you want to introduce our guests, Melissa?
Sure. So with us today are Lynn and Jon Greenberg from the Creative Cab Company. And they have a book series that I totally love. So Lynn Greenberg has dedicated her life to champion children as a trained attorney, practicing family law and providing pro bono work for kids. And her youngest son, who is with us today, was diagnosed with dyslexia. So Lynn became his advocate and used her own skills and tools as a lawyer to help develop a roadmap for success for him. And it inspired her to support neurodivergent children. And together they have written and illustrated a children's book, Robbie the Dyslexic, Taxi, and the Airport Adventure. And they also have another book that has recently come out called Suzy the ADHD Taxi and the Sightseeing Adventure. Jon has done all the illustrations for the book, and definitely need to check them out because they're absolutely adorable. As someone who has young kids, like, you can definitely see that kids would be attracted to these books. So they've created characters that are neurodivergent themselves, and kids can relate to them. So these kids that are neurodivergent don't feel like they're so alone. So great relatable stories. So Lynn and Jon, welcome to Parenting Shrink Wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Tell us the story, and it's probably a winding one, but tell us the story about how these neurodivergent taxi cabs came to be.
Well, we're in two different places right now. Jon's in Chicago and I'm in Connecticut. John is finishing. He's about to graduate from getting his MFA in Chicago. So sometimes we might jump on each other because we're excited to tell the story. So I'll start and then he can jump in. But it was, during COVID, and John was home, and John was an art major in college. And it was hard for everybody, obviously, to be home and to try to learn virtually, but it's even a little harder, I think, to do that with art. And so John was doing as much as he could and adding on and doing his own thing. And I was also reading on FaceTime to my grandchildren. And so we sort of decided, yeah, what if we wrote a children's book? And what do we know about? Well, we certainly know about dyslexia and ADHD. And so we started talking about it. And then Robbie, the dyslexic taxi, was born. And we co-authored the story. And John did all the lovely illustrations. And, John, your thoughts on why we picked that topic?
Well, first off, you could kind of say it was our baking thing during COVID. So some people had their own little uh, uh, activities to do. We created this, and I mean, as a kid, I'd always sort of liked Thomas the Tank Engine to serve anthropomorphic vehicles with humanistic faces and that sort of stuff. And so we thought it would be an interesting idea to try putting that into a taxi, because when we thought about the whole process of what might be a profession that would especially be impacted by someone being on the spectrum of being neurodivergent. So then I think it was my dad said, how would taxi, who is dyslexic, because personally I always had trouble telling left to right, how would a taxi be able to find the way if it couldn't read street signs and take the left and rights? And we're just like, we just picked it up from there.
Yep. That's how.
So I was just going to ask, like, describe what happens a little bit. So Robbie is a taxi with dyslexia and has to get through the city with coping mechanisms, basically.
Yep. So, here's Robbie.
And Robbie, if you can't see, if you're listening, Robbie is this like cute yellow taxi with like all the illustrations, the trunk of the hood of the car is like a big nose, and the headlights are wide apart, and then the bumper is this like smile underneath, and they all have this I don't know, this warmth to them. They're very cute. So Robbie's a big yellow taxi.
But I also love too that like Robbie is navigating their way through an airport. Like navigating an airport as an individual that's not neurodivergent and doesn't have trouble telling left from right is usually pretty complex in the wrong airport.
Exactly. And it can get even crazier. But we had talked about it. And so the Creative Cab Company, where all of our characters, where Robbie works, is a place where people can celebrate who they are, no matter what their neurodivergence is. And the people in charge all try to help whichever taxi or car vehicle it is, helps them navigate what works best for them. And so for Robbie, he was always sent on sort of the same path so that he could memorize the route because he's really good at it. But one day he goes to pick up a passenger who he knows well, and the passenger says, there's a change of plans today, Robbie. We're not going to my office. We're going to the airport. And Robbie kind of, freaks out and thinks, what am I going to do? And then because he is smart and capable, he takes a vehicle deep breath and decides, how can I do this? And so he looks up in the sky, and I won't tell you the rest, so you can maybe read it on your own, but he figures out the best way to get to the airport, and he's so successful because he has the tools and he had support from all the people who care about him.
Oh, I have some chills about this. I just want you to know. Like, I love this. John, does Robbie's little does Robbie's experience encapsulate some of your experience growing up as someone who navigated neurodiversity?
Very much so. There were like a lot of techniques that I had to learn, such as I mentioned earlier that I couldn't, tell my left and right apart, but I was told this suggestion by my mom way back when that if you hold up both your hands, I won't do it here because it's probably going to be uh, reflected, so it'll look a little extra confusing. But if you hold up your right and left hands, if you make uh, little L shapes with them, your left will have an L and your right will not have an L. So it was a very sort of creative but straightforward way to overcome something that a lot of people don't even consider. So in that respect, that's what we wanted to focus on, overcoming what others may consider simple through the most creative aspects you could consider.
Do you find so? First of all, I still use that tool. I just want you to know. Like, I'm driving along and Waze says turn left, and if I'm not looking at what left means, I have to remember what left means every time. I also reverse numbers, as Melissa knows. Like if she gives me a number, if I see it, invariably it gets written down. Like if
I'm better off being the one that writes down and types the numbers.
Yeah, I reverse them. I mix them up. So this is my, I can't, and my husband knows I can't keep numbers in my working memory. They fall out of my working memory. There's other things that I have a great memory for, but numbers are not one of them. I can look at numbers and then he'll go downstairs and he'll say like, what, how much did we spend on that bill? And I'll be like, I don't know. He's like, didn't you just pay it? I'm like, yes, but that was 20 seconds ago.
Let me put this way. There's a reason why I decided to make art my career path and not something like mathematics.
Yeah, and it's not that the concepts are beyond me. I can't hold the numbers. I can't, and I can't keep them in order. It's just so I get the the having to come up with workarounds. What has been the feedback? How has this been received? Because we think it's
I think it's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We've had nothing but positive from this, honestly. It's been an amazing experience. I think some of the best moments are when we've done like book signings, or I once gave a reading to the school that helped me become remediated in reading and writing, a place called Windward, and working with the kids in person and seeing sort of the happiness and that I've literally had people come up to me and say it's just amazing to see someone like myself in this book. And there's really no way to describe that feeling, but to put it simply, it is one I will never forget.
And Lynn, I mean, obviously you have a career as an attorney. Was writing a book ever a thing for you? Was this ever an idea, or was this really like COVID born?
Well, to be honest, when I was in college, I was thinking maybe I'll be a writer. Maybe, I took a lot of creative writing classes. I loved it. I was an English major.
Okay.
But at the time, I thought more practically, how can I put a roof over my head? So I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I could, do some creative writing on the side and use my writing skills as a lawyer. So I did that. And then, what happens? You have plans, but I did not end up doing that kind of creative writing till much later. And, this seemed like a wonderful opportunity. And so, Jon and I decided to explore it. And as he said, we've had such positive feedback. We've won book awards and had been on so many wonderful podcasts like this, and really been able to talk to a lot of people. And we just have been really so thrilled with the response. And so we decided to write a whole series under the Creative Cab Company logo. And as you said, the second book is about Suzy, the ADHD taxi. So And we're hoping, we're planning on doing other books. And so we'll see where it goes. But as I said, we've had a wonderful positive response to the point where we're selling books and reaching so many people, which was our dream.
Yeah.
So
Lynn, when John was growing up and you had to do the advocacy for him, what did you learn, and what wisdom do you have to pass along to parents who are currently advocating for their neurodivergent little ones or adolescent ones?
you know what? It's not an easy path. And I think especially, John is in his later 20s, and back then it was even harder because there was there was no, I had a dial-up computer. Like, there was no Google, there were no Facebook groups. I did not have a community, and I didn't know really anybody whose child was neurodivergent. And it also really wasn't, talked about as much. You weren't allowed to discuss those things, which is crazy.
Uh-huh.
But, nobody did back then.
Mhm.
And so it was difficult because I had, as early as, when he was 3, and in his nursery school class, his teacher was saying that he was slow and, he should stay back. And I'm thinking, no,
Uh-huh.
that is not my child. I'm not just a prejudiced mom, but I know that's not my kid. He, as he said, he loved Thomas the Tank Engine and knew every Thomas character's name, but not that Thomas started with the letter T. And we know that everyone learns differently. I have 3 much older kids, but I knew John was not hitting the sort of classic milestones. And so I had to start doing my own investigation. I went to the library. I talked to a friend who's a pediatrician. The school was most unhelpful, even when he got into grade school. And it, almost to the contrary. And I just knew in my gut that something was just different and needed to be addressed differently. So I found, with help, I found someone who would test him because the school wouldn't.
Oh, that's so
He-
frustrating. That still happens, Lynn, and it drives me bonkers. It is something that I still have patients who struggle with, that like the school system like won't test a child when there's something going on. They're like, oh well, they're passing, and it's like, yeah, oh, but like, and something I also always say, because it drives me really batty at work, is like being neurodivergent and intelligence and IQ are very separate things. Um,
oh, yeah.
they have not, like, one doesn't equal the other. Like, and I hate when it's like, oh, somebody's slow. Like, what the heck does that mean? Like,
Actually, Mom was using a more polite way of.
Yeah, want to keep it PG. So it was very, very hard. And ironically, once I did have him tested and I went into the school with, all the information, they said, we don't buy it. We're going to test him. I'm like, too little, too late.
that
Like,
still happens.
really, I, I was so unhappy. And then the learning specialist said to me quietly, I don't know how to teach a child who's dyslexic. And yep. And I thought, okay, so now what? And so the woman who did the testing had a child who was autistic, had a child with dyslexia, and said to me, there's an amazing school in New York, in Westchester, which is about 45 minutes from where we live. You really should look at it. John belongs there. They teach children who are dyslexic, who have high IQs or other language-based learning differences. Go look at it. And so I did, and I thought, oh, if John could go here, this would be amazing. And so we had a family meeting, and because, I have older kids also, but back then, how are they going to get somewhere? I was driving, at least like almost an hour each way. And we made a family decision that John really needed to go, private school. So we decided we'd all eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly. And, we really made the family decision. And I think once John was admitted, was a process too. We were so thrilled because he met his people, I met people. It was finally a really honest conversation. He's like, he felt better knowing that, his label, which some people are reticent to do, but I think is important. His label gave him the feeling that, wow, it's not my fault. And now I'm in a place where I can learn. And everybody there was in the same boat, and all the parents had the same story I did. And so it was really, really great for us both to find people that we could 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 communicate with and felt, we had compassion for each other.
Jon, earlier you were talking about about helping people see themselves in the book. And what you just said, Lynn, just like joining the school community gave you the experience that you are hoping to give readers with this book, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. So how old were you, Jon, when you transferred to that school?
I was, I believe, 12 or 13. No, 7.
Speaking of mathing, you were you were going into second grade, so you were 6 going to be, you were just about 7.
Yeah,
Not quite. You
okay.
were
My
6.
second guess was more correct. I don't know why 12 or 13 came from.
You left when you were 12.
Okay, well, I see I got my dates.
You got your 12, you got
Yeah,
the 12 part right, honey.
So you
yeah.
might not remember the answer to this because you were pretty young when you transferred in. But for this, I'm going to ask a question about what it like. I want to know what you remember about feeling about going from one school environment, how that was for you, and then moving into this other school environment. In particular, I'm asking because there are parents of kids who are they're trying to make decisions about best schooling experience for their kid, and to the extent you can speak from the child's perspective or to help give a child a voice, I'm asking if you could do that.
Well, surprisingly, even though dates kind of fall out of my head sometimes, the memories of that, they do stick around quite well. Uh, when I was transferring, of course I was nervous. I was going to a new school in a completely different location. It took us 45 minutes to get there. It was a completely different teaching method. There were a lot of things to be nervous about, but what you got to realize is while I was at my old school, I was frustrated pretty much constantly.
Mm.
There were a lot of like late nights spent with mom and dad just trying to get the most basic of work done. It was honestly infuriating. So to end up in this new place, there was some discomfort at first, but I pretty quickly fell into being there. And then my annoyances came from basic school stuff, not I can't read and write, and this is the most infuriating thing in my life. And I'd much rather just have school drama than doubt myself on a day-to-day basis.
Then yeah, that to then so you were given the privilege of having regular kid problems.
Yes. Which
And I
that
hate to
sounds
say it,
ridiculous.
I don't mean that you were an irregular kid. I mean the problems you were having were regular. That's what I
Yeah.
yeah,
But when you put the kid in the wrong environment or an environment that can't support a child,
the orchid doesn't bloom.
no, you're in the crack.
And it's very hard. And I would say, I think I zigged and zagged when you asked me, what would you tell parents? And I would say, you really have to listen to your gut and listen to your child. And not just what they're saying verbally, but also, maybe the nonverbal cues. John, I was told before he transferred to Windward, I was told, John's a problem child. He gets up and he wanders around. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like my child. He's not a problem anything. And, obviously no one's perfect, but I knew that didn't sound correct. And so John and I talked about it, and he said, Mom, I get up because she's asking me to read a book and I can't read it, and it's really embarrassing. So those kinds of things, I think parents really need to listen to. And if they don't test you, there are other ways in the school system which, are more of a process, but you need to try to advocate as best you can. Sometimes there are advocates you can speak with that can help you. Different school systems have different approaches, but don't let the talking heads tell you, you know, that there's a problem that you don't think is really the answer to what's going on with your child.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a therapist, I will often say, "Hey, listen, I know patterns and I know developmental norms and I know communication styles, but I do not know you if I'm talking to a kid or
Right.
client, or if I'm talking to a parent, I don't know your child.
Right.
Therefore, this must be a collaboration. It can't just be me talking from on high because I'm not the ticket to to the internal workings of my client, whether that's a child or the
I
parent of a child."
tell parents all the time, like, trust your gut. Like, if something
Yes.
does not feel right, I don't care what so and so said or what the school said. Like, what is your gut telling you? Like,
Mhm.
I say to parents all the time, I'm like, you know your child best. So, like, what is it? Like, if you might get a label that's wrong. Like, being told your kid is slow when they actually have a learning difference is, very different kind of connotation there.
It sure is. And so many neurodivergent differences have at the core that the IQ is very high. It just they, you know better than I do, but I would say all the kids at Windward that were with John had to have a high enough IQ to be able to learn how they were going to teach them. And so when people say, "No, I'm so sorry," I'm like, "Why?" John thinks it, John thinks it's a superpower, right? He just needed to learn differently. And now look at him. He's amazing and creative and empathetic. And, you know, it's who he is. It's only a problem if you don't help that person to be the best they can be.
Yes.
And I think we've talked about, oh, sorry, John, like on our episodes about ADHD, like we talk about the superpowers of ADHD, and like those kids typically have they're creative, they're funny, like there's lots of other things, like it's not a defining moment just because they might need support in a different way.
And all I was going to add to that was being at, I'm currently at SAIC in Chicago getting my MFA. And the amount of people here who are somewhere on the neurodivergent spectrum is so common. It's frankly almost uncommon if you don't have anything. And these are some of the most creative and unique and interesting people you can meet. So I stand by that superpower phrase quite readily.
John, when you left, you were 12 when you left Windward, and did you go then back into a traditional school setting?
Yes.
And did you no? Yes, no?
No, I
Well,
did.
it was traditional, but it was also private. That's all I was going to
Okay.
qualify. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Johnny. Finish.
Uh,
Uh,
I was going to ask, did you feel like because of the type of teaching you'd received and the learning you'd done, did you feel equipped to go into your new school environment, which obviously was selected with care by your family?
Yes. No, I left Windward with all the techniques and strengths I needed to succeed in these other programs. And of course, there was still a bit of a learning difference, uh, learning gap. I mean, being in a new school again and sort of relearning basic things because they did do things differently. But I had the skills, so I was able to get through it without any real issue.
I think about, because I said, and when I was introducing myself before we started recording, I spent 26 years in schools, middle and high school. And we would get, and a variety of different, all of them independent, just that ended up being my trajectory. And in the independent schools, not all of them, but some that that I worked in, we would take kids who came from, one school I worked in took kids who came from therapeutic settings, and this isn't the same. I'm not likening neurodivergent specific education to a mental health condition, but I'm likening the training that you receive in programs that are specific for your needs. That's where this is going. And I would get those kids as ninth graders as the counselor, which is my role, and they had so many tools. So yes, they had left a therapeutic environment, but they also tended to be some of the best at managing their emotions and managing the big stuff that school threw their way, because they had been explicitly taught this stuff. And what you're saying, it sounds to me, you had a similar experience. It wasn't about mental health tools. It was about learning tools, but you had spent time exposed to specific, ways of manipulating what you were being exposed to so that your brain could grasp it. My question for you is, did you embrace your label? Like we talked about this earlier. Did when you went into middle school, which is like such a, like, who wants to go back there, right? Like, just, and
Yep.
everyone's mission in middle school is to fit in some way. And you were adapting as a new student to a new middle school. Like, did you go in kind of advocating for yourself to say, like, hey, I have dyslexia, this means I have to learn differently? Or did you kind of keep that on the DL?
I definitely, for things like extra time, that sort of stuff, I would advocate for it. I'd go get it. I felt like it was a right I deserve. Now, I wasn't going in the hallway and just telling people I'm dyslexic, but if someone asked, why do you have extra time? I'd be like, oh, I have dyslexia. And I go on to explain what that means. 'Cause a lot of people would just think it is thinking a B and a D are the same thing 'cause it's backwards. But it's a lot more complicated than that, and then it would create discussion, and that's one of the other reasons why we even created the book, to create discussion.
So, so it sounds like another outgrowth of your going to a school that was suitable for you is you got to grow into self-acceptance that might not have happened if you'd stayed in the school where it was such a mismatch environmentally.
Most likely, yeah.
I can't stress enough how foundational that experience of self-acceptance, where whatever your schooling needs may be, we do kids such a service when we can offer them a way to embrace who they are and see a path forward for themselves with like glee and enthusiasm, right? And to own who they are without apology. And uh, and that doesn't we owe that to 7-year-olds, we owe that to 12-year-olds, we owe that to 17-year-olds. I feel like as a therapist, we owe that to, everybody deserves that. So what a gift that you were able to receive, and what a gift that you and your mom have turned that experience into for the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And when John left Windward, he could have gone to any school anywhere. He could read better than quite a few people. And the school he went to was a school that was celebrating the arts. He had to do all the curriculum. He took a language, like he did everything. And he didn't ask for anything except more time. And quite frankly, he didn't even always need it, but he had earned that, as he said. And I think it is important, because if you give kids the tools, then, to the best of your means, I think then they can find the courage and, the fortitude to be who they are and be proud of that.
And I think the success is, just take a look at the cover of the book, and John's success is plastered all over it in beautiful illustrations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have the other one here. This is Suzy.
Oh, And
Susie's pink.
Suzy is pink, and Suzy is also as cute as Robbie. I can't wait to see future books from you guys. For our listeners, where can they find you guys? Where can we purchase the books and future publications too?
So we would absolutely love to hear from everybody. We are on almost every social media platform under the Creative Cab Company logo. We have a website. You can DM us. You can email us through, either. You can go buy it on Amazon. If you go to your local bookstore and don't find it, you can ask them and they can order it. So there are many ways to do it. And if you're having trouble and want it, like I said, email us or DM us and we would be happy to help you and come, talk about it. We'd love to go to schools and to bookstores. So we really enjoy the back and forth with people who have had a similar experience or who have read the book and enjoy it. So come find us.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and for writing very much needed books so that kids can feel accepted and know that there's other people out there like them and that with the right tools, they will be just fine and successful, just like John is.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to talk on these, podcasts like yours, and I think it's really important to keep the conversation going. So thank you.
You're welcome.
To our listeners, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Parenting Shrink Wrapped. As always, we also thank you for raising the next generation of world changers. We love you. We love your kids. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride called parenthood here at Parenting Shrink Wrapped. We hope today's episode gave you some useful tools and maybe even a few laughs to help you navigate the twists and turns of raising teens and kids.
Remember, parenting is a journey, not a destination. And no matter where you are on the road, we're here to help you stay on course. Whether it's monumental meltdowns, teenage turmoil, or just the everyday chaos, you don't have to travel this path alone.
So until next time, keep your seatbelt fastened, your sense of humor intact, and your eyes on the road. We'll be back soon with more compassionate conversations and practical strategies to support you and your family.
Don't forget to subscribe to Parenting Shrink Wrapped wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you've enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review and share it with a friend.
If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see us cover in the future, feel free to send us an email at parentingshrinkwrapped@gmail.com.
Until we meet again, take care and enjoy the ride.